everyone, welcome to Bello's Designs. My name's Catherine, and today we're going to be making this card that I'm calling Lumus's Pink Passion. Let's go ahead and talk about what we need to get started. For stamps, we'll be using the Lavinia Jip, which is LAV 705. We'll need the Flower Divine set, which is LAV 903. And lastly, we'll be using Lumus Large, LAV 897. In addition to that, we will be using a piece of Multifarious Cardstock that I have cut down to 3 1/4 by 7 3/8. And then you'll need one piece of cardstock for the base of your card. And this cardstock measures 8 by 7 inches, and it is scored and folded in half at 3 1/2 inches. For today's card, we'll be using a gel plate. So I have the Nellie's Mixed Media Plate, which is available at Bello's Designs. I'll also be using the Sweet Petunia Glue Press, as well as the MISTI stamp platform. You'll also want to have a mister, a brayer. I also have some dinkles that I've pre-mixed. I'll be using the deep yellow and the pink. I have those pre-mixed into spray bottles that I have picked up at a bargain store, and so I just like to keep them on hand and they're ready to use whenever I'd like to use them. In addition to that, I'll be using a moon mask that I have made myself with my own dyes. You'll need a blending brush and a fan brush. For inks, For the inks, we'll be using the Lisa Horton Cloud 9 Sweet Violets, Elements Inks by Lavinia and Sundance, and Confetti. I have a couple of Versafine Clairs. I'll be using the Green Oasis and the Nocturn. And then to finish my card, I'll be using my lavender stickles, as well as a purple Posca pen, or violet, and a white Posca pen. I'll also be using my gold Wink of Stella, and then you'll want a blending brush as well to paint in the flowers. All right, let's pull it all together and get started. We're going to begin with our brayered background. So I'm going to start with my yellow Sundance Elements. And we'll just ink up that brayer. Give it a nice light layer with the yellow. Roll off the extra on my scrap paper. And let's come back in with the confetti, and we're going to do the confetti on the top half of this card. So just ink it up. And then come back in and get it ready to go. All right, now that that's done, what I'm going to do is use my pre-mixed dinkles, and I'm going to put some of the pink into my palette tray. Could also use your blending mat if you have one of those, and the yellow. And I have my fan brush, and I'm going to start with my pink and just really load up that gel plate with pink. Now when you're doing this, you probably are going to want to wear, I'm going to recommend that you put on some old clothes or maybe a smock or an apron if you have that, because this really gets everywhere. When I was making my sample, I got it on yet another shirt. So I think I've lost count. That makes 4 or 5 this year that are stained with dinkles, and I don't know what to do about that. So here we are. All right, now I'm going to come back in with the yellow and just add lots of yellow all over. Okay, and I'll rinse that off. Okay, and I have my piece of Multifarious cardstock, but before I use that, I'm going to come back in with my mister. And from high up, because I don't want to get this too wet, but I do want a little bit of a mist, because that's how I prefer to use my gel plate, and I just like the look of the background a little bit better. So now I'm going to take my Multifarious cardstock and line it right up onto my gel plate. Give it a good press. You could even use your brayer just to make sure that it's pressed down there. And let's flip it over and see what we've got. Ah, perfect. I'm going to give it a little spray and see if I can get rid of this little line of ink down here. There we go. All right, I like how that turned out. I also like the way that my Multifarious cardstock dries on its own, so I'm going to leave this to dry and come back in a little bit, and we will go from there. We didn't add a lot of water to our Multifarious cardstock, so it did dry while I was just cleaning off my gel pad and cleaning up the dinkles that I took out, and so we're ready to go, and that really didn't take very long. I'm now going to create the moon on my card using the mask that I've created myself and the Cloud9 Sweet Violet ink. All right, the next step is going to be to stamp my fairy in the center of my moonlight. So I'm going to move my scrap paper out of the way and bring in my MISTI stamp platform. And again, the thing that I like the most about this is that I can really wedge my card right into the corner and hold it in place with the magnet, but I know that I'm going to get a nice impression when I close it and the card's right against that corner of the platform. So I'm going to put Lumus right where I'd like him, right in the middle of my moonlight. And we'll close the platform to pick it up. And come in with the Versafine Clair Nocturn just to ink this up. We'll give it a good press. That looks like it could use another layer of ink, so that's the nice thing about the MISTI, is that you always get your image stamped in the same spot. And I think I'm going to do it one more time just to really fill that in well. And there we go, a nearly perfect image. Just wipe off that stamp. And put it away because we're done with that. So the next thing I'm going to stamp is one of the flowers from the Flower Divine set, and I'm going to do 2 at the top of my card. So we'll ink that up in Nocturn. And have it come in right off the top. And we'll do one more. Okay, pretty happy with that. Now we're going to do a small cluster of them down here in the bottom corner. So ink that up again. Stamp it right about there. And I'm going to clean this one off and swap it out for the other stamp in the set. And stamp a couple more. One off to the side and then one down here in the middle. So, give it a good coat of ink. And then we have room for one more. All right, I'm going to swap that out for the jip. And we're just going to add a few details in the green Oasis. This is a really bright green, so I think for this card what I'd like to do, once we get this extra ink off, is stamp it off, give it a first generation on our scrap paper, and then we'll stamp it onto our actual card. So just tap it and stamp. There we go. And we'll do it once more down here and then a couple of times at the top. So once onto my scrap paper and then once more on my card. And I think we could fill in this little space down here with just a little bit more. So there we go. I'm going to paint these, the blossoms in, so I really want to keep it off of my blossoms. Now I'm going to come and do a couple more coming down from the top. Stamp it off and add it in, and then one more over here. Okay. All right, before I move to the next step, I'm just going to give that a blot and make sure that all that Versafine Clair is dry, because it is a slow drying ink. And put that off there. And this is where you're going to need your watercolor brush and some paper towels to help soak up some of that extra water. All right, so I'm going to put my jip away. Some of you may have a blending mat where you can just put your paint or your ink right onto your mat to blend it in, but I'm going to use a little block, and I'm coming back in with my Sweet Violet from Lisa Horton, and I'm just going to add a little bit to that block, and we'll pick it up and paint in those blossoms with that. Now that we've painted in all the blossoms in our card, I'd like to come back in with the Sweet Violet and a blending brush, and I'm just going to add some darkness and depth to the outside edges of my card before adding some orbs with my Posca pens and some sparkle with my Wink of Stella and my stickles. Here we go. Now that we've darkened the outside edges, we can come back in with our Posca pen, because that's pretty fast drying, and I'm just going to add a few orbs to my image. Now we have some purple orbs. The Posca dries pretty quickly, so while that's working, we can come back in with the Wink of Stella in gold, and I'm going to add it to the wings. And the final step is just going to be to add some sparkle with our stickles. I think I'd like these orbs just a little more glittery, so I'm going to come back in with my crystal stickles and add them to these white orbs. Just add a little bit of extra to that. All right, there we go. You can see all that sparkle and glitter. We'll give this some time to dry, and then we'll put the rest of the card together. Our stickles are dry, and we're ready to assemble our card. I like to do a bead of glue all around the 4 outside edges and then a little bit extra in the middle just for some stability. So let's get that centered. press it down and make sure it gets a good stick. And there we go. There's our finished card. And here's our sample that we started with. Thank you for joining me today. If you're not already a member of our Facebook groups, please consider joining us on Del Bello's Designs Lounge, where you can share your projects featuring Lavinia Stamps products or Del Bello's a la carte for other stamp lines Del Bello sells.